you can interpose with.
Now I'm going to lose my queen.
Then I would take the queen back, but I still have more pieces.
So I'll go like this, and then you're going to take my queen.
Right. And you would take back with the king.
Then I take that.
Okay, so now we look around, and I have a rook ahead, and just four. I have material in there. I would probably just cast them. And once you get ahead like this, then you swap pieces. If I swap pieces, then I'm left with this and a number of pawns, and you don't. So
I'm already lost.
you're already lost.
You know, Don, as you know, my dad just died, and Darren's grandfather just passed away about 3 weeks ago, and I've been thinking a lot about, the hereafter and heaven, and what happens when we pass on, and I've always thought about it, but I really haven't given much thought to it until I lost my dad 2 months ago. What's your feelings about heaven and what happens when you pass on?
Boy, that's a heavy subject. Well, did I ever tell you my rainbow story?
No.
Well, maybe this will be my answer. It goes back to the year 2001, many years ago. I got a letter from my high school, Chaminade, back in New York, that they were going to have the 50th reunion in 2002. I graduated in 1952. So I'm not one to go to reunions, but I thought, hey, 50th, that's a pretty big one. So I thought I'd go back. I checked with my wife, but she wasn't interested because she didn't know anyone from my high school. And then when I looked at the calendar, I found that my niece, Madeline, was in a play that same month, and it was 10 days later. She had the lead role. So I thought, well, if I'm going back all that way for one event, I might as well stay for both. Now, my story has nothing to do with the play or the reunion, but what happened to me in the 10 days that I was back in the New York, New Jersey area. I arranged to stay with my cousin, Ann and Jerry. They put me up, and one day Ann says to me, she's trying to be a hostess, think of things for me to do rather than just watch television. So she says, Donald, would you like to meet a holy man? I say, holy man? Come on. What do you mean? What does he do? Well, he heals people. Oh, how do you know that he heals people? Well, he healed my best friend's granddaughter. So, my curiosity was aroused. I had never met a holy man, and I had time to kill. So I said, sure, I'll meet him. And so it was arranged. My cousin and her best friend, this woman who was also a grandmother, her name was Ann. The two women are going to drive me to Jersey City to meet with Ray. And when we're on the way, I find that Ray is going to lead a group in the saying of the rosary. That was my first clue that the holy man was Catholic. On the way, I thought I would ask a few questions and try to find out something about Ray. And when I asked them, they said, the story, as best I remember it, was that one day Ray is an average guy. He didn't go to college. He was a father of 2 children and a grandfather of 2 children. And one day he's walking home from work in Jersey City, where there's the garbage trucks did not arrive that day, and the garbage is piled up on the street. Or the garbage cans are still out. They haven't been emptied. And in one of the garbage cans, there's a painting of the Blessed Mother and St. Anne. The Blessed Mother is a young girl leaning her head on the breast of St. Anne, and it's all dirty, filled with grease and dirt. It's obvious that somebody found it in their cellar and cleaned out their garage and was throwing it away. Well, Ray takes this painting out of the garbage can, he takes it home, cleans it up, and oil seeps out of the eyes of the Blessed Mother and Mary, and he collects the oil at the bottom, and this oil turns out to have healing properties. And that's where he gets his reputation for healing. I then asked her, what about this story you told me that your granddaughter was cured? And this woman, Anne, she was the mayor of Bloomingdale, or had been the ex-mayor. So she was a formidable woman, not a lightweight. And she said that her granddaughter came home one day and said that she wasn't able to walk. And the parents were puzzled. They took her to all the best doctors in the New York area, and nobody could cure her. So one of the doctors said, why don't you take her to see this guy Ray in Jersey City? Maybe he can do something. So they took him to Ray. Ray prayed over her. Maybe he applied some of this oil, I don't know. But Ray predicted, he said, in 40 days she will walk. So the parents took her home, and they're counting the days very carefully. They knew exactly when 40 days were up. And on the 39th day, they were looking at her feet, and the feet had started to uncurl. They were curled up from disuse. Atrophy had set in. And they looked like they were straightening out on the 39th day. And on the 40th day, she arose and walked. And she's been cured ever since. So this woman then said, she says, you know, my father is an Anglican minister, and my family, we're all Episcopalian. And Episcopalians don't think much about Mary. But as a result of this, I decided I was going to read up on Mary, and I do say the rosary. Not every day, but I do say the rosary. Now, somehow her story was more impressive to me coming from a non-Catholic than it would have been if it was a Catholic telling me the story. I'm not sure why, but it was more impressive to me. And I was then more curious to meet Ray and find out more about him. Well, we arrived at his home in Jersey City, but we were late. We got lost in the docks of Jersey City, and the rosary was over, so we missed that part of it. And I was told that Ray was in a room over to the side behind a closed door, and that he was giving an audience to a woman, but that I was next. When she came out, I could go in. And I thought to myself, I said, you know, I don't know what I'm going to say to the guy. I haven't thought. I can't go in and say, hey, I'm here just to satisfy my curiosity. So I said, but I was I'll think of something to say. I looked around the room. There was many statues of the Blessed Mother, and all with a lit candle. It was kind of like a church atmosphere. And then the door opened and this woman left. So I walked in, and we kind of said hello to each other, and I said, I understand you heal people, but I said, I'm in pretty good shape physically, and so is my wife, so I don't have anything to ask. But as soon as I said my wife, I thought of something. I said, wait a minute, there is something. I said, 9 years ago, my son Richard was killed in a plane crash. And to this day, in all that time, my wife is still heavy of heart. She never had a dream of Richard. Is there any way she could know that he's okay? Well, he understood my request. I think he was pleased I wasn't asking for anything material or money or something. He sits me down and he introduces himself. He says, "I am not the Christ, but some see Christ in me. I have caused the blind to see and the lame to walk, but I'm not the first to have these powers. There have been many before me." He says, "I have great pain. Blood flows from my forehead into my eyes, and I have pain in my hands and my feet. Especially my feet are painful. I later learned he has the stigmata he suffers, and I saw his wounds in his hand." He said, "Your son Richard is at peace. He is in the 7th level of heaven. That's what happens when there's an accident," which is not something I knew. In fact, I didn't even know there were 7 levels of heaven. That's the first I heard of that. He said, he's with the one he died with, the one he was close to. And I later remembered that Richard was close to the flight instructor. He was learning how to fly. And of course, they both died together when the plane went down. And they had been friends. So Ray pointed to a picture. It was against the wall. It was of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, where there were a lot of trees. He says, "I picture Richard and his friend in a place where there are a lot of trees."
Kind of like this right here.
Yes, that's very true. Then he said, the accident was no one's fault. It was merely Richard's time to go. And that comforted me, because I had always blamed the pilot of the other plane. To know that, well, it was just God's will, it was his time to go, was comforting. Then Ray was on the other side of the room, and he was turning to his right, listening, and then talking to me. And he asked me, he says, some strange things. He said, "Did you ever have a bunny rabbit?" I says, "Bunny rabbit? Well, yeah, we did the year Richard was home from college. Did you have a broken wagon wheel?" I said, "Yes, that's a decoration on our porch. It's on our porch today, a broken wagon wheel." So he was speaking of things of our house, and then he turned...
And you never told him ever that you had these things?
No.
You never mentioned it to anyone that would have told this to him or anything like that?
No, it's something I had never thought about.
Okay.
Decorations around the house.
Okay.
But then he was puzzled. He said to me, "Do you know anything about a rainbow?" I says, "Rainbow? I don't know anything about a rainbow." And then he turned and he listened more, and he says, oh, as if he understood. He said, "When is Richard's birthday?" I said, "May 1st. He says, "Good, that's the feast day of the Blessed Mother. On that day, you buy a candle and light it. Buy a candle anywhere in the store. It doesn't have to be a special candle. And on that day, you will see a rainbow, and you will know Richard is there." So that was his answer to my original request. Is there any way to know that Richard is okay? So I took this message home to California. It was in September or October, many months before next May 1st. And I had an interest in rainbow that I had never had before. Every day my eye is in the sky. I'm looking, bright sunny day, I'm looking for rainbows. But you see, there aren't many rainbows in Southern California. It doesn't rain here. in all those months, October through the end of the year and into April, I realized that I've only seen 2 rainbows in over 7 months. And a little math say that come May 1st is coming up, the chances of me seeing a rainbow on exactly May 1st is over 100 to 1 against me. But I didn't say it's not going to happen. I was still hopeful. Well, let's see what's going to happen. May 1st comes, and we had bought a candle, and we lit the candle, and we go out, my wife and I, to travel to my daughter's home in Mission Viejo. And I said, well, why don't we say a decade of the Rosary? And we did. And then we just started the second decade. And when I said, I saw something in the sky, I said, look. And there, low on the horizon, was a patch of sky, of very vivid colors of red and blue and pink and purple. The rainbow colors, but they were squares. And 4 squares combining to make a bigger square. It was a patch of sky. So it wasn't a rainbow shape. It was the rainbow colors.
This is on May 1st.
This is on May 1st,
okay.
The day. So I was puzzled, and we're standing in the middle of the street, and then I looked up, and above me there was a giant cloud, and on the rim of the cloud there was a rainbow. Now I had never seen this before in my life, and I have never heard anyone describe it. How can there be a patch of sky? So then the phone rang, and it was my daughter-in-law Tammy from Huntington Beach saying that she had seen the rainbow from Huntington Beach and was hoping that we too had seen it. She knew the rainbow story, as my whole family knew of it, and so she was looking to see and was pleased that we had seen it. As we looked at the rainbow, my wife was kind of in awe as she sensed the presence of God and of Richard. And I said to her, I said, well, what do you think? And she surprised me with her answer. I was puzzled. She says, it's not enough. I said, it's not enough? She said, no. She says, I want to hold my Richard. So I realized that the heartache that we sometimes have in this life will never end until the next life. But now I was 100% sure there is a next life. And that's my rainbow story. And it's your move.
If I may ask you, also, in 2009, you also lost your daughter, Marilyn.
Yes.
Did that experience that you had with the rainbow have any comfort to you, knowing, did it comfort you at all when you lost Marilyn, your daughter?
I believe so. I accepted it. I
Did
relied on Ray. I put my daughter Marilyn in touch with Ray. They were in touch by phone and prayed together.
And what did Ray say about that?
Well,
Did he ever sense that she was not going to be healed, or that
no, he never said
he never talked about that?
that she would be cured.
And then Ray lost his life, right?
Ray later, I learned, died of a heart attack, I believe. Something. He died suddenly.
And how long ago? You didn't look into that at all, or talk to anybody about that?
I'm a long distance away, and so when I heard he died, there wasn't anything I could do.
But how many years ago was that?
Oh, boy, I'd have to look it up, but maybe it's 8 years or so ago.
But he wasn't that old, was he? Ray wasn't.
Well, he's younger than me. I would have said he was 10 years younger than I.
Oh, really?
I'm 84,
So you're 84, so he would have been 74. He would have been in his like mid-60s.
maybe. Yes.
Wow.
But I may have that wrong. I may not be sure of
No.
his age.
Well, that's amazing.
Whether that helps you out with the death, that's something you'll have to think about.
Well, I think about that. I think about my dad. If I can tell you a story, today when I was walking outside the driveway, you know when you pulled up, we're in the driveway, and then about 2 hours later I went out to the driveway with my dad's dog Sadie. I was walking out to the driveway, and then I turned down. I was going back into the house, and I felt this thing hit me behind, like brush against my back. And I turn around, and it's one of those half-deflated Mylar balloons. You know the Mylar balloons that have helium in them, the tinfoil-looking balloons?
Uh-huh.
And you know, people say don't let those go up in the sky because they can cause planes to crash. They can get caught in plane engines. You know the balloon I'm talking about?
Not really,
Well,
but you've described it enough.
It's a Mylar balloon. It's a silver-looking balloon, and they have designs on them sometimes, artwork and stuff. They're helium balloons. People get them for birthdays and stuff.
Uh-huh.
You can't pop them like
But it
regular
came
balloons.
down from the sky?
I felt it brush against me, and it was like floating. And then I looked at it. It was floating about 3 feet off the ground and bouncing up and like going up and down because it was only half full. But the balloon was covered with roses, and it said, "I love you."
Oh.
So then I take the balloon, and I'm like kind of like at awe with it. And I go and put it in the trash can out front. We had today's trash day. So I put it in the dumpster out front. The trashman's going to come today. And I threw it in the trash can. I didn't want this half-deflated balloon, you know, this Mylar balloon. And when my mom comes home, about 2 hours later, I told her about it. And I went out to go get the balloon. And I brought it in. I go, "Mom, this balloon brushed against me. It was like coming out of the sky. And it was like this hovering about 3 feet off the driveway up in the air, but it looked like it was wanting to come down on the ground, you know, because it's losing air." And I said, "It says I love you on it." And look at the roses on it. So then I said, maybe Dad's sending a message saying I love you or something.
Yes.
So then she said, maybe. Usually she would say, "Oh, that's silly" or whatever, but she said, maybe that's what it is.
It could be.
So
maybe is a good answer.
So I take the balloon, and I go put it back in the trash can. I lift up the lid, the green trash can lid, you know, the big trash can that the trashmen are going to come. And the trash can's full of trash. I put the balloon in there and shut it back in. I go in the house. Okay?
Yeah.
This is about 2 o'clock. When I go out to get in the car to come over here right now, which is 5 o'clock, I go out. I see the lid of the trash can open and back. That tells me the garbage man came and he already emptied the trash can.
Yes.
So I'm going to go out to the curb, get the trash can, bring it back up, and put it in the backyard. As I go over there, the trash can's completely empty. Okay? The trash man came and emptied all the trash. But what was still in there?
Obviously the balloon.
The balloon was still in there. And I put it in there with the trash can was full of trash. It should have went with all the trash when the trash man came to pick it up. But the balloon was still in there. Isn't that kind of odd?
Well, a story that I told you of Ray has to do with a garbage can. So you never know. You never know.
And he's the one that found that portrait of the Blessed Mother?
Yes.
And when he took it into his house, it was weeping of oil.
Yes.
And you saw that.
Yes. I have at home one cotton ball of oil that he would collect it by soaking them in cotton and putting them in a plastic bag. And I had a number of them, which I had given out to friends. I have one left, which I'm saving for I don't know what. He's dead, but I had some of his oil.
Did you ever talk to Father Leo about the rainbow story?
Today, I told Father Leo the rainbow story 4 years ago.
Okay.
And today I told him, I was visiting, and I said, "Father, should we say a rosary or should I tell you my rainbow story because they were filming me, and I said, but I told you that story. He says, I don't remember you ever telling me that story. So I said, do you want me to tell you the story? Because if I tell you the story, then at the same time I'm rehearsing for when they film me later. So he said, okay. Well, he listened to the story as if he heard it for the first time.
What did he think about it, though?
He thought it was some story.
But did he believe that was God, and believe that was Richard giving you a sign?
He did not express any doubt.
He had no doubt.
He expressed no doubt. He didn't. Everything he said was that this was a story worthy to be told.
Wow. When you lose someone like I just lost my dad, I have complete faith and confidence knowing that my dad's with God up in heaven with Jesus. But it's comforting. I couldn't imagine losing a child. It's comforting to know that, like they're with us. They're with us presently, or they're in our presence.
And maybe your father did drop a balloon for your mother. That's a message. When we go to the cemetery to visit Richard's grave, and there's a plane flying overhead, we're thinking, who knows, maybe.
Well, what's so weird is that I thought it was kind of silly when the balloon hit me and I saw it said I love you with roses. And I thought, okay, maybe that's a sign from my dad, jokingly to myself, right? And then I showed it to my mom, and she said, well, maybe that is, right? But what really kind of threw me for a loop is when I threw it in the trash can.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to save it. I didn't want to save this balloon. I showed my mom, that's all I wanted to show.
Yeah.
When I threw it in the trash can, and the trashman came to get the trash a couple hours later, and the balloon was still in there when I got the empty trash can, that was kind of like, I brought it in the house and saved it and said, maybe I need to save this.
Maybe you ought to know. Okay.
I really felt that.
Yeah, I think so.
And so Darren was sharing with me, he remembered this birthday card that he made for my dad, a hand-drawn card. And it was a beautiful card of Jesus, and it had all these roses surrounding it, red roses, the same roses that were on this balloon.
It could be. I'm not going to be skeptical into all that could be. I saw the rainbow.
As I reflect on Don's story, I just sit here and I look up for a rainbow myself. But not a physical rainbow, a spiritual rainbow, a sign, because that rainbow to Don was a sign for him. It's just what he needed at that right moment, that right time. But don't we all need a sign from God? Isn't that what all people search for? Does God exist? What is the meaning of life on earth? Why are we here? Why as humans? What is the purpose of life on earth? In some form or another, we all need a sign for ourselves. And I urge you to search and to look at the world around you. Hopefully, the stories that we're going to bring to you here on Ambassador of Truth are going to make you guys think deeper, make you guys try to rationalize from a personal perspective of others that have had personal experiences with God and or with things of the Spirit or with supernatural experiences or healings or miracles or anything along the lines of God moving in people's lives. We're going to bring you those stories here on Ambassador of Truth as they come. So click a subscription, stick around, and stay tuned for the rest. Because hopefully, God willing, we're going to bring you some awesome stories. And, you know, I've always felt that God did such an amazing job in my life, you know, healing me of cancer 5 times and making it so that my hair never fell out and I never needed Neupogen, and all the details that astonish people most of the time. But hearing Don's story and so many other stories that I've heard from friends and family and other people, I realized they pale in comparison to what other people have experienced. So I realized, you know what, I would love to go out and find other people that have incredible stories to tell. And I'm going to tell them right here on Ambassador Truth. So stay tuned and stick around and give us a subscription on this channel, you guys. Hopefully we earned your subscription. You know, everyone always puts those irritating things, like and subscribe my video, like and subscribe my video. We're not going to do that here. We're just going to ask, hey, if we earned it, give it to us, please. We need your support. This channel is all about spreading the love of God to a world in hurt and a world in need. We're entering a time where things are changing, guys. Let us not change our heart, soul, mind, spirit. Let us stay true to God's word. Let us stay true in the strength and the foundations of love and mercy and forgiveness and kindness. And may our stories of what we've experienced shine God's light and love into your life. So if you have a story of God, how God moved in your life, go ahead and leave a comment below. And I'll see if I can reply to it. And maybe if it's possible, if the Lord willing, maybe we could have you guys interviewed. We'll see. Stay in touch. Stick around. I love you guys. Stay strong. Soldier for Christ, signing off. Ambassador of Truth here, getting ready to go engrave the sword, which is the Word of God, with the Word of God. It's going to be good. And take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Ephesians 6, 8 through 20.